Go fuck yourself. At no point was any member of the Lincoln Project informed about this underage child. At no point did what was apparently an open secret on gay Twitter, go fuck yourself, come to our attention in a way that said, hey, wow, this is a problem at scale. Go fuck yourself. Holy hell. Because that's a hermetically sealed world. I'm a 57-year-old white dude, straight white dude who lives in North Florida in a swamp. Okay? I'm not on gay Twitter every day. I don't know all the rumors in the back end. Go fuck yourself. None of us live in D.C., so we're not around that rumor mill all the time. Karl Rove apparently knew in the 80s. Didn't tell me. Didn't tell Steve. Didn't tell Stu. Didn't tell Reed. Didn't tell anybody, apparently, until now. You're going to go at our work. You're going to go at whether or not you think we're right or wrong to oppose Trump or Trumpism. Your call. But when you try to impute that the kind of behavior he engaged in is a universal constant in our organization, go fuck yourself.
In early January, journalist Ryan Gordusky broke the story on John Weaver. He's a Lincoln Project co-founder who's accused of leveraging his political power in exchange for sexual acts from young men.
Yeah, so here to discuss the story, recent updates, and more, author of the piece himself, friend of the show, Ryan Gordusky. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Ryan, we talked a little bit about the story earlier in the week, but you were the person who broke the story and more importantly have been following many of the Lincoln Project members since who have been trying to distance themselves from John Weaver with essentially the argument of hardly knew the guy. So delve a little bit into that. First of all, in terms of the allegations themselves, how you uncovered them, the New York Times and the Washington Post finally waking up weeks later to your reporting, and also the denials that we've seen from Rick Wilson and Kellyanne, George Conway, and others.
Right, so I got the story because John Weaver followed me on Twitter, like he did many, many other young men, although I'm not that young, but younger than me. And young men started reaching out to me, DMing me, saying, look, I'm worried for you because this is what happened to me. I'm 21, so I'm clearly not 21, but I understood what they were saying. I then sat there and started reaching out to them, working with another outlet to try and get the story out there. I had heard rumors that many people were talking about the project I was working on because I was interviewing a lot of people, asking me a lot of questions. And I know now for a fact that it got to the Lincoln Project that I was working on it. They admitted on their podcast yesterday that they had heard I was working on it, that someone at the New York Post, which is who I was working it with, were working over the summer. John Weaver had his heart attack very quickly after upon myself hearing that the Lincoln Project was aware of the project I was working on, which is not unusual for Weaver because he has faked health, or he has said he has had health problems in the past, right before a negative news story came out about him. I finally on January 10th, I tweeted the allegations out there because young men would not come forward. I needed someone on the record. No one would go on the record. I finally tweeted on January, 10th, that the rumor was that this was the rumor. The rumor was there's a member of Lincoln Project promising young men jobs in exchange for sex. Finally, young men started coming out on their own, and they came out of the woodwork in droves. So I was able to finally put up the story and say that this is what was true, and John Weaver was a predator.
Wow.
So I don't know anything about his heart attack.
Yeah.
I'll take him at his word that he really had health issues. But just talk about the timeline here, because the Lincoln Project guys knew that you were looking into this. And also, it was apparently widely enough known that people started coming out of the woodwork, reaching out to you with stories and with concern just because he followed you on Twitter. So how plausible is it that they had no idea that any of this was going on?
Go fuck yourself.
Well, they keep mentioning the 14-year-old boy that the Times reported on. The Times came out with this story 3 weeks after my story. I want to say, when I wrote the story in January, in mid-January, the Lincoln Project, I reached out for comment, they said nothing. Then Scott Stedman, another writer who was actually a victim of his grooming, who we reached out to, they said nothing to him. Finally, Axios came out with a story a week later where he said, look, I'm gay, I'm going to step down from Lincoln Project because it's a distraction, but at no point did I think that my interactions with these young men was non-consensual. They said the Lincoln Project statement was, John Weaver's statement says it all, and we stand by what his statement was. Finally, when the Times came out with a 14-year-old boy, they sat there and called him a predator. I do not believe that anyone in the Lincoln Project knew about a 14-year-old boy. I hear a lot of rumor about a lot of people. I had never heard of a 14-year-old boy. So I totally believe that that's true. It was very well known, though, within media circles, within Washington, D.C., within the political class, that John Weaver was a creep, that he had a problem. Another very, very well-known household conservative, never Trumper name, was asked to approach to join the Lincoln Project, according to 2 sources, and he said, I can't join because John Weaver is a creep. So, and they keep saying this is the first time we heard there was a problem, that on their podcast they said, it's the first time we heard him talking to a minor. It's a lot of plausible deniability. I don't believe they spoke to a minor. But for at least, I know this for a fact, for at least 3 weeks after my article came out calling him a predator, they were silent on the accusation that he was a predator.
Go fuck yourself.